call this meeting to order. Excuse me. First up is the roll call. Council at large Cummins.
Here.
At large Postian.
Here.
Ward number 1 Hembry.
Here.
Ward number 2 Helm. I see him, he's online. Mike.
We just can't hear him. He's
I
muted.
think I heard a noise.
No, that's Tim.
All
Mike,
right,
can
and
you hear us?
Ward number 3 McNeil.
Here.
All right, so now it's time for Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is over here in this corner. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and if there are no additions to the agenda, I'll ask for a motion to approve it.
Motion.
Cummins with first and Hembry with the second.
Cummins?
Yes.
Helm?
Helm may have fallen down some
We
stairs.
lost him.
Postian?
Yes. Yes.
Hembry?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Helm?
All right, then we'll move down to the next part, which is communications. And if anybody would like to address the council, please make your way to the podium. State your name and address for the record. Seeing as there are none and there's no more people online, I'll close that portion of the meeting and we'll move down to city business. And the first one, which is a resolution to approve the amended and restated easement agreement between the city of Tipton and the Cedar County Co-op. Mr. Wagner?
The resolution that you have for tonight is similar to the one that you tabled at your recent meeting that followed the public hearing at that time. The city attorney has said that the public hearing you did before meets that requirement. So there's no need to do it again when it comes to what you're looking at tonight. The resolution has been modified to bring it up to date with tonight. So it's just slightly different than the one that you tabled. The agreement has changed in a few ways. I marked in here some of the ways that, some of the changes that you were already aware of before this latest version went out on Friday. And some of those areas are just marked with a yellow slash through a paragraph that had been added before. The new stuff, the new language is highlighted block style in yellow. And the main difference is that it looks at the tree plantings in a different way. When we first looked at it, there was a budget of $10,000. And then there was a map showing trees. And rather than the 10,000, we thought, well, if it's showing this many trees, should it be this many trees? And then we thought, well, what if the real trees aren't represented as well on the drawing as they would be in real life with that same number. So instead we changed the way of looking at it to covering a certain amount of footage along the north property line of the co-op property and the west property line. So in the diagram, and this isn't a final exhibit A, it's what we had time to do to give you an idea of what it would look like for the meeting tonight. It looks at having a double row on both the north side and west side. On the west side, 420 feet long, more or less, 280 feet more or less along the north side. We talked to Steve, and he's also talked to a source or two, recommending a Techni arborvitae for the tree that's used, since they would grow together eventually. Not at the beginning, it would take a while, but they would grow together and make like the natural fence that we're trying for in this latest plan. And as it's being done, the work would be checked by Steve as Public Works Director or City Arborist, whatever term that we would use. We highlighted again an update in the dust control compliant or aspect of it. That dust control would be applied to gravel surfaces on the subject property as necessary to control and limit airborne dust from said surfaces leaving the grantor's property in an unreasonable manner. And then it says that it can be, city compliance can be triggered by either complaints from nearby property owners or, and in city staff or inspected by city staff. We have, we had in an earlier version, there were 6 parts for regulations, but a lot of those are already federal and state regulations. So the one that we kept was if the co-op is ever given a notice of violation for anything, they have to immediately and without the city asking first, make us aware of what the notice of violation is. You saw this one before, but I thought I should mention it again. After this agreement, if it's passed, any future change when it comes to this agreement would need to go to planning and zoning. It would need to, no amendment to this agreement shall be considered by grantee if grantee is presented with a petition against any proposed amendment signed by 50% or more of the owners lying within 200 feet of the boundary of the subject property. And so then it goes through the steps with planning and zoning and then to the council, and that the council can have a public hearing or will have one. Enforcement, this is new since your last meeting. That makes enforcement of this agreement subject to our municipal infraction ordinance, which can be fines of up to $750 a day for the first day, $1,000 a day, or up to that for any ongoing infraction. If the city of that time chooses to, it can make each day a new infraction. It has, along with Exhibit A, it has planting specifications, and there are 5 of them. Just generally, Techni arborvitae shall be planted in 2 rows in the general location shown on page 1 of this Exhibit A. The arborvitae shall be planted 14 feet on center in each row. 2 rows of arborvitae shall be separated by 16 feet measured from the center line of one row to the center line of the other row. The 2 rows of arborvitae shall be staggered as shown, generally shown on page 1 of Exhibit A. All arborvitae plants shall be as close to 3 feet tall or taller if possible, with all arborvitae planted to be generally consistent size so that they'll grow and mature in approximately the same rate. And then along with it, the agreement also has the ongoing requirement that the co-op maintain and, if needed, replace any of these trees if they should die. Steve, is there anything you want to add about the plan or the quickness which with which it would grow.
Well, when I talked to Jacob Gilman with Kelly Tree Farm up there, and that's his operation now since Kevin's kind of retired, he said his inventory, his stock right now is pretty good, 2 to 3 footers. He doesn't have 70 or 80 trees. He wasn't sure he would have that many next spring. He's pretty sure he's gonna have that many this fall and then some. Which means to me, if we can possibly get them in this fall, that'd be great. These would probably, if we can get a 3-foot tree, and these techniques would probably grow up to 1 foot a year after the root system gets established. So you could expect these to be kind of closed in 4 to 5 years. If you're looking straight onto the windbreak, get through every 14 feet and stagger, you're looking at a tree every 7 feet. So there would be a visual closure basically from our soccer field side fairly soon. Eventually, when they get up to 15, 20 feet tall, that would be a huge block. And they grow pretty fast. So I'm pretty comfortable with that as a recommendation. Now, you can probably find some place in the state where you can get 6-foot trees, but these are around $30 to $40 a tree. 6-foot tree in Iowa City right now, planted could be $400 or $500 over there. So I think this is a great way to go. I'm more about getting a smaller tree with a bigger root system so that tree will take off faster. 4 to 5 years, we should be in good shape.
Either Dave have any comments or questions?
I'd just like to make a statement.
By all means.
Honorable Mayor and the City Council, just for the record, my name is Dave Cruz. I'm the property owner to the north of Co-op and a longtime developer in Tipton. I asked the city to not accept any changes in the transition zone. This transition zone was proposed by Co-op 10 years ago. This agreement was made with the city to protect future residential development in the city park. I think changing this agreement now sets a dangerous precedent for the future of any and all other agreements the city may have, not only with Co-op, but also across Tipton. When will they ask for another change? I also wonder if the area north of the chemical mixing facility that will be used for loading trucks with chemicals, wouldn't that be part of that facility and not allow it in the transition zone? I would also ask the council to check into the 2 torpedo tanks already installed in the transition zone to see if they are in compliance. And if they are not, to ask Co-op to remove them or relocate them. Thank you for your consideration. I think this is an important thing for Tipton.
There any thoughts, Tim and Mike and Jason as well? Do you guys have any questions or thoughts on this? Mr. Henry? Ms. Van Scoy? Hold on. Nope. All right.
But just so I understand correctly, when we were looking at, when we discussed this at the last meeting, we were looking at Plan A and Plan B. Plan B was a concrete pad that was not enclosed. This is not in the transition zone?
The concrete pad?
Yes. Is that what we're
It
saying?
would be, but it wouldn't be a building.
Okay. And not to be dumb, but why is a concrete pad allowable in the transition zone without our approval?
I think if I'm recalling the city attorney correctly, he said that it regulated new buildings, and this wouldn't be a building as specified by the agreement.
Can I ask Dave a question?
Definitely.
Bruce? How do you feel about a concrete pad in that transition zone that is not enclosed.
I mean, it's concrete pad. The use of it, I think, is different than a concrete pad where you're driving trucks across. This is where they're going to be loading chemicals out of this facility. That's part of the facility, if you ask me.
Oh, wait,
I'm not entirely sure if you answered my question. So your preference would be to have a concrete pad that is not enclosed? I mean, that's
The concrete doesn't bother me.
because there are going to be trucks loading and unloading on that. And
I
that's
think-
visually going to be different than a building. Because the
Well,
trucks will be inside of the building loading and unloading. According to the agreement, they will be inside of the building with the doors closed, is my understanding. Do you know what I'm asking
Yes,
you?
according to the agreement. So I applaud the co-op for improving what they're proposing. I think my problem is just changing this transition zone. It was set up by co-op 10 years ago. And now they're changing it. So, and they're changing where the doors are located, so when they'll be on different sides, they're changing a lot, not just saying, well, we need a little more for the traffic flow. They knew about this transition zone 10 years ago. And when they laid out all these buildings, I would hope they would have taken some of that consideration.
because what it sounds like to me is that no matter what, there's going to be chemicals put into trucks, whether it's enclosed or on a concrete pad.
And that's my concern, is that you won't.
Could I say something?
1 second, Mike, 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so your biggest issue is the transition zone. Is the feet are being changed of that transition zone, or one of the biggest ones.
Well, and David wanted to be
Yep.
recognized too.
Okay,
Hold on 1 second, Mike.
I want to be clear. The concrete pad to the north is unloading only of fertilizer, liquid fertilizer. There's nothing loaded on that. The concrete pad is there for containing. You have to have state containment, so on and so forth. Unload only.
Okay.
So I would rather put that unload, as Dave and I had talked, in that building, keep the doors shut, insulated building to quiet it down. And Dave, I understand what you're saying. There was an agreement 10 years ago, but I don't think it's in real estate, business, personal, things change. I mean, you can't. I'm just trying to think of one thing in life that doesn't change. I mean, we've expanded greatly at the co-op in the last 7 to 10 years. And this is just replacing, because of our growth, the other chemicals. Like I said at the last meeting, I'm all for the trees. I'm gonna do whatever it takes for the neighbors. I want to put this indoors. Because the transition zone written 10 years ago says buildings. Doesn't say anything about concrete pads. And those torpedo tanks of LP are not buildings. Doesn't say anything about LP bulk storage.
Okay.
So in my opinion, we are following the exact easement that was written in 2012, and I will follow that exact easement. But if I do follow the exact easement and not get the variance, I will put the pad on the north side, just as I can.
All right, Mr. Helm?
I think he pretty much said exactly what I was going to ask, because from my understanding, he can put a pad up regardless. So one way or another, there's going to be something in that easement. So whether it be contained on a building or be open to the public, that's the main thing.
So it sounds like to me. All right. Anybody else up here? All right. Then I would call for deny, approve, table this the restated easement agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Austin with the first to approve
Second,
and Helm with the second.
Helm,
yes.
Ashton,
Yes.
Hembry,
No.
McNeil,
No.
Cummins,
Wow, isn't this a dilemma?
I don't know.
This is tough because I feel like I would be saying no if there was nothing there. But because there's going to be a concrete pad there and it's going to be in the same space, that's where it becomes difficult.
There we go. So
So that's where I'm at.
without the agreement, it's trucks at 3 a.m.
Yep. All right, I mean, yes.
All right. So the resolution passes 3-2.
Are you supporting?
And
Yes.
The reason why I asked on a 3-2, the mayor could veto, but if you're for it, then it doesn't matter.
I'm for it because I think it is for the development, the better of the two outcomes.
That's exactly, yeah. Unfortunately, that's where I'm at.
I mean, if I can be so honest, Dave, I wish you wouldn't be putting it there at all, but I get why you need it. But I think that this is the best compromise.
Yeah, when that's what you're presented, yeah. Unfortunately.
That's where I'm at too.
Because the other way, you're looking at a concrete pad, potentially no trees cover, and it makes it difficult.
Jason?
That's exactly it's the lesser of two evils. It's.
Not that you're evil, Dave, Summer.
No, but it's going to be enclosed. Everything's going to be enclosed rather than outside where everybody can hear it, see it. So.
Would have been easier if it could have been done in the building in the area that you had, but this is the worst of two evils, or best of two evils, excuse me.
All right.
So Doug, what was the main reason for not the 35 foot to the south? You can't
Dave.
pull, or Dave can't pull it back that far?
Yeah, the only reason is just traffic. I mean, when you come around the north side of that fertilizer building, it just creates an issue if we're unloading fertilizer and bringing a truck around the corner. And just believe me, this just makes it so much more efficient. You've got to wait around for a truck to get out of the way to get into that building. And again,
But your east-west clearance would still be the same, would it not?
Pardon me?
Your east-west clearance is still the
Yeah,
same,
it's still
trucks rolling in and out.
Yeah.
And you've
But
got
it's just-
your diesel up there.
Believe me, when you got the amount of trucks we do going through that parking lot, you
I don't
need
know if
traffic
that's selling
signs
it
or
better.
road signs or something, and that was one of the discussions. And to be honest with you, again, I appreciate the yes vote. I asked for 35 feet in this easement we've done the exact measurement, GPS is, everything like that, and essentially 26 feet. So, again, 35 feet, 26 feet, we're only talking 26 feet. So that's, I appreciate the bonus.
All right. Moving on to number 2 then. Discussion and possible action concerning the 4th of July parade route change due to North Avenue's street project.
Well,
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
They're gonna turn left on North Avenue, so to go down to the old route down to Mulberry.
Motion for it.
Embry with the motion to pass this.
Second.
Motion.
Cummins with the second.
Poshton,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes,
Helm,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
All right, next one is discussion possible action concerning moving both August meetings to a later time, which would be August 8th and the 22nd.
Yeah, this is, what we have are some city staff who are going to be off
Excuse me.
during the time period when the meetings would be regularly scheduled. And with August being a 5 Monday month, we thought that this would be a good suggestion. So we're proposing this change.
If the mayor's here, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am. Because of the change, it should be.
Motion.
Cummins with the first
Second.
and Helm with the second.
Hembry,
yes,
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Poshton,
Yes.
All right, the next one is discussion of possible action concerning a bid from Croc Construction to put a concrete pad at the Tipton Airport.
Yes. In the area where the hangars are, there's one hangar off by itself and the others are all in a row with concrete in front of them. And so between the one hangar and the row of hangars, there's a grass area. And the airport committee felt that by filling in that that grass area with concrete pad, it would make it more efficient for snow removal. Snow plow could just keep going along the fronts of the hangar doors and plow them all off. This came in at a little over 8,400. They got 4 bids. Steve helped them collect those quotes. And this entire amount would be paid for if approved by CARES Act funding.
All right, any questions about this? Is there a motion?
Motion.
I got a question.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Flat glass better than steel.
For what?
The rebar.
Oh, I just thought you meant in general. I don't know, that'd be for Steve.
Rebar, 3x3 grid, half inch.
But fiberglass, is that,
It could be fiberglass, if the other is not available. I know a lot of contractors are going to fiberglass, and I've heard the strength is the same or better. I don't know much about fiberglass, but I know a lot of contractors are using it now.
Is it less expensive?
It-
mean, why-
It is a little bit.
Really?
What's the cost, Ron, do you know?
No, it's just a little bit expensive, but then the other, or fiberglass is cheaper. The other question is, you mentioned half-inch bar instead of 3/8 bar. And they're doing 3 foot on center as opposed to 16s and 12.
No, the fact that the guys were bidding on were developed by Larry Lynch. Initially, he put the first bid in there. I came in on the tail end of this thing and showed Croc what it was. The airport committee got bids from Lynch and Lowy maybe?
Yeah.
yeah,
And then Cox came in at the end and said, well, we'll throw a bid at it.
Yeah.
So I didn't set up the specs on it, I just showed them what it was.
The airport committee had initiated the specs and requested pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pushed that. And it's, the nice thing about that, if that gets concreted in, then the snow removal would be a whole lot easier and it could all be pushed, not between the buildings, but past the buildings on both ends. I think that was one of their big benefits of doing that, so.
How thick's the concrete, do you know?
Well, I told them 6 inches minimum. I think they're talking 7 or 8 maybe. I don't know, Ron, to tell you the truth. I wanted to bid apples to apples and nobody gave me a sheet on what it was. Do you remember, Brian, what they were talking about? I don't think it was 8, but it could have been 7.
I know it was a minimum of 6, but I don't know what this came up with.
Does the bid that Crocs, what's that say?
It doesn't spell it out, Steve.
Yeah.
One question I'm gonna throw out there, will it get taken out if full development of the airport gets put in place? When that time comes down the road? You know, because, you know, the airplanes aren't gonna hurt it, or the truck's gonna hurt it.
Well, it's a,
Or the fertilizer truck's gonna hurt if they come in and spray. You know, will they be traveling across it?
well, this is in mine.
Yeah,
It's a little bit heavy.
It's right here.
Okay.
Next to those hangars back there. The planes, and I know what you're talking about, the tankers that come in there, typically they're out in the parking area, I think. Once again, I'm not involved.
Well, I mean, you could approve it contingent on Steve finding that it has an acceptable thickness.
Yeah.
To me, the way I read the bid, it's 6 inches of concrete. He's got excavate 10 inches, fill with 4 inches of 1-inch rock. So that should be 6 inches of concrete.
Sure.
I guess the old school of thumb used to be 2 inch or 2 foot on center, but I haven't poured a driveway or anything like that in quite some time. So
All right, does anybody want to make a motion and make it contingent on anything
Sure.
or contingent on the 6 inch
Sure.
to make sure? All right, Cummins with the first to approve, but
I'll
with
second.
the requirement that it is second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Helm.
He said yes, that was Helm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think they all did.
Yep. Yeah, they did. The next one, which is it's number 5, discussion of possible action setting the July 20th council meeting as the time and location for the Tipton Urban Renewal Area Amendment slash consultation session with representatives of the Tipton School District in Cedar County. Mr. Wagner?
In amending our urban renewal area, or TIF area, there are a number of legal requirements that we have to satisfy. We have to, for example, on the 20th, we'll be setting a public hearing for your meeting on July 6th. There's also a requirement that the city has to offer the county and school district a consultation meeting. And when we did that before, we just had it here and I held it with representatives from those 2 entities. But since we need to offer them the meeting 2 weeks before our public hearing, the meeting on the 20th comes out to be 2 weeks and 2 days. So I'm asking the council if we just have the consultation meeting with any representative from the school and or county who comes. And basically what happens is if they have questions about the projects in our urban renewal plan, such as for rhinos, for example, drip, trip, those kinds of things. They can ask those questions. Then they have those 2 weeks, I think it's one of those 2 weeks, to give us comments back in writing if they have problems with what we're proposing to do. And then the council has a week to consider those comments before your public hearing happens. So it's mostly a formality, but there is always a chance that they'll cite a problem that maybe we're not aware of. So I would like to have it near the beginning of your meeting, and hopefully you'll agree.
All right. Then I'll ask for a motion for this.
Motion.
Cummins with the first
Second.
and Hembry with the second.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Hembry, McNeil,
Yes.
All right, and the last one, which is resolution in support of the Rhinos Building Upper Story Housing Project. This would be this city affirming its financial support for the Workforce Housing Tax Credit Program.
And this is very similar to the resolution that the council passed for the same type of application a year ago for the Hardacre Apartments. And for that project, they were awarded a bit over 50,000 in future funds once their project is done. Well, this is for the Rhinos apartments that are proposed. There are 2 proposed for the second story. It mentions things that the council has already decided to do. It mentions the TIF funding, the 100,000 for the upper floor, the 50,000 for the commercial ground floor. It mentions that we received the downtown housing grant recently. It mentions that as the transitional owner, the council has approved the repair of the roof. It mentions that Rhino's project would be eligible for the tax exemption if it had, or whatever its new taxable improvements might qualify for. So in the end, it doesn't add anything new to what you've already decided to do. It just mentions those things and states the city's support for their application for these tax credits.
All right.
So basically, we still support it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make a motion.
We are continuing to support it. Hembry was the first
Second.
and Cummins with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Bastian,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
All right, and that moves us down to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Hembry with the first and Cummins with the second.
Bastian,
Yes.
Hembry, McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins, Helm.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.